see the funny things they do. Well, a Dominic, a rooster, and a bow-legged hen, they may go together, but they ain't no kin. Gee, but ain't it grand, can't you hear that band play those House of David blues? Okay, I want to introduce you all to this game that I made up. I was supposed to go on tour April of 2020. I released my album January of 2020, Mozart of the Banjo. And I thought, well, any old fool can play instruments and sing songs and tell stories. I need something to give me an edge. I need an element of danger. So I came up with this idea because I thought, first I thought about spinning a wheel, but I couldn't really travel with a giant wheel. So inside this bag are about 300 of these little wooden chips, and each one of them has the name of a tune written on it. So that's about 300 tunes that I think I know how to play. And so the idea is to pull one out, level one of the game, let's say, because there's many ways, there's some variations on the game, is to see if I can play the tune. So why don't we have an actual fiddle player pull a tune out for us? What are we going to have?
You could guess what it is. It's Albie's Wolf.
What? Okay, that's funny. So this is a tune that I wrote. There's probably like 2 or 3 tunes in there that I've written. I have probably written 3 or 4 tunes in my life. But this is one I might even would have played anyways. So yeah, okay, I'll play Albie's Waltz. This is fun. I wrote this a few years ago and I named it, I wrote it when I was at my friend's place in central Michigan, in Remus, Michigan. And they had this dog, a very fierce, sometimes sweet, sometimes mean, little white dog named Albie. So I named it after him, and he's gone to dog heaven a few months ago, but he's in a better place. And here, this one's for you, Albie. let's jump into some banjo music, shall we? The real reason we're here. Everyone knows that Aaron Jonah Lewis can play the fiddle. But I'm going to tell you about this banjo music that I'm going to play for you tonight because it's really uncommon. People don't play it much anymore. And if there's one thing that I want you to know or to remember about this music, which we call classic banjo music these days, and I'll talk more about what it used to be called and why, but this music was the most popular kind of music in both England and America back around the turn of the 20th century. So even from the late 19th, from the 1850s even, it was picking up steam, and then in the 60s and 70s of the 1800s, it was becoming very popular. And then when you get toward the last couple decades of the 19th century, it was just the biggest thing. And the reasons for that are partly that it was, in those days there was only two kinds of music, really. There was music for wealthy, educated, elite type people. They called that classical music or art music. And there was music for everybody else. And that was called entertainment music or, folk music. I don't even know if that term existed back then. But it was just called music. And that covered everything from what we now call folk music to, ballads and dance music. This music was the sort of peak of musical, endeavor up until just when recordings became available, when recording technology became available. And that changed the game drastically, because before recordings were available, the only way you could hear music was when someone was playing music on an instrument or singing, or you were doing it yourself within earshot of someone else. And recordings changed all of that. Before that, there's before and after. So before, people were, a lot more people were making music themselves and visiting each other, being sociable and going to each other's homes to play music together. Once recordings came along, I said, why should I spend time doing that when I can just turn on the radio or buy a record? I was talking about this just last weekend with another musician, and he pointed out that, at a concert, when you read about some performer giving encore after encore after encore, it was because when the concert ended and they stopped giving encores, there was no more music. The house music didn't come on. You didn't go in your car and turn on the radio. You didn't pick up your phone and turn on whatever. That was it. There's no more music until someone else started playing music. That hadn't occurred to me. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Anyway, I'm going to talk a lot more about the banjo music and everything around it. But let's start off with a piece by Joe Morley, the Mozart of the banjo, as I like to call him. And this is the first track on the album, and it's called Walk Round. And just for the sake of your imagination, I'll tell you, a walk round was a type of dance or sort of an act in the evening of a cakewalk or a minstrel show, usually at the very beginning, when each character would just sort of parade about in their attire and sort of present themselves to the crowd. So you can picture all the different, outfits people might be showing off. So here it is, Walk Round by Joe Morley. that piece was only published for the first time about 10 years ago. Joe Morley, let me tell you why I call him the Mozart of the banjo. So he had all these parallels with, like, eerie number of parallels with Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. They were both child prodigies. They were both very prolific and somewhat successful in their lifetimes, although towards the end of their lives they were also pretty irresponsible with their money and died poor and were buried in unmarked graves. But the main reason I want to call him Mozart of the banjo is because he has his music it so exemplifies the style of classic banjo. Just like if I were to say to you, I've never heard any classical music in my life, what is that? What does it sound like? If you were to give me one example, you'd probably pick up some Mozart. It's accessible, all of it's really good. So it's that way with Joe Morley, and he published he didn't publish, but he had over 300 pieces published in his lifetime, and we know that there are at least twice as many unpublished laying around in people's attics and basements in boxes, handwritten manuscripts, because 120 years ago isn't even that long ago. So there's some work to be done to bring those pieces to light. Let's do another piece by Joe Morley. Let's do, should we do something upbeat? Don't get too excited. Okay, let's try a fancy one. I know the Incredible String Band actually recorded this on one of their albums. It's called Banjo Town. Play only Joe Morley music for you tonight, even though I could and you'd all love it. But I'm going to do one more piece by Joe Morley right now. This one's called Egyptian Princess, and it's a lovely piece. It's very evocative. It's like really sparks the imagination with images of camels trudging through the desert, and people waving palm fronds at other people and stuff like that. But I also want to point out that the title is a really good example of the Orientalism and racism that was just explicit and rampant in those days. And it doesn't mean that these were bad people. It just means that's what was normal. That was normal in society, to treat other people like they were not equal. And of course, we still have a lot of those issues today, and in some ways it's a lot harder because it's not as explicit. It's a lot more subtle to try and address those things. But part of what I'm doing here with this music isn't just to share these delightful tunes, but also to bring some of this history to light and remind everybody that history is not just something in the past. It's not just a series of dates and names. It's what life was like, and it is very relevant to us today. Not to just disregard or hide away the things that are uncomfortable, but to acknowledge them so that we can actually move forward having learned something and not to repeat the same mistakes over and over. So with that said, here's Egyptian Princess by Joe Morley. just keep playing banjo. I mean, okay, I'm gonna play at least one more on the banjo now. So I just don't want anyone to get sick of it. I'm all about the variety here, so I'm gonna do another banjo piece and probably some more fiddle. Let's see. I'm gonna just jump in with a piece by an American composer here called Park Hunter. He's from Indiana. He died young. He was called the greatest banjo player of his time, although he wasn't the only one to be called that. But he, based on the things that he's written that I've looked at, he was quite a virtuoso. And I'm going to play his most popular piece because it's his most playable piece. It's called Fun on the Wabash. Okay, cool. Cool, that's great. This is a tune that I got from Fiddlin' Arthur Smith, who is one of my all-time favorites. He's also where I got the House of David blues from. Although he didn't write it. He didn't write that one. He might have written this one. He wrote many, many tunes that people think of as traditional tunes coming down to us from the mists of time without any author. But most tunes have at least one author. And anyway, I play this at all the square dances in Detroit, which is where I live. I organize square dances there. This is a great dance tune. I'll do another one that I got from Phil and Arthur Smith. I think he wrote this one. This is one thing I love about Arthur Smith's songs is that the lyrics are extremely, extremely trite and cliche. I'm not really a lyrics person. I don't care that much about lyrics. I just like the sounds that the words make. So this is a lovely one. I do this one at all the weddings. It's a love and marriage type of song called the Green Valley Waltz. Who's gonna shoe your pretty little foot? Who's gonna glove your hand? Who will kiss your rosy red lips? Well, Papa will shoe my pretty little foot. Mama will glove my hand. You may kiss my ruby red lips. I asked my girl to marry me. She gave me her right hand. Said she'd be my blushing bride. I'm going to play one of my favorites for you now. This is one that I learned early on, and this might have been this is one of the pieces that made me say, okay, I have to learn how to do this. I've been playing banjo for 20 years, and I started playing classic banjo about four and a half years ago. which isn't a short enough time for people to be that impressed that I can actually do it. This is by another English composer named Emil Grimshaw, and it's called The Banshee. I like to picture the introduction section as a cozy setting of a cottage somewhere with a storm raging outside, but you've got a nice fire in the fireplace, and you're sitting there maybe with a nice big old book of, words printed on paper like we used to do, and maybe something nice to drink, and just a nice cozy scene like that. And then with the fast part, the banshee the door flies open, and the banshee comes howling into the room and destroying everything and just wreaking havoc. And destruction. That's how I picture it. Just, fun stuff. Yeah, I remembered. I said I was going to do some special things that I can't do when there's microphones around. So I'm going to do a piece, another Morley piece, which ironically I did record on the album with microphones. It just brings to mind, these friends of mine had a band, and on all their records, they would say, "No electricity was used in the making of this album." Which is like, obviously a joke, but some people would believe them and say, "Yeah, man, that's right. You've got to stop using so much electricity." So anyway, yeah, I never use microphones except when I do. So yeah, this is another Morley piece. This one is really delightful. To me, it calls to mind an image of like, there's like a castle or something, and the sentries are walking along the ramparts, and they have to sound the alarm because they see in the distance there's armies approaching. So everyone starts getting ready, and they get all excited. And as the army gets closer, they realize it's an army of banjos. So it's a happy day, and the fun ensues. So this one is called Banjo Land. Geez, we're gonna have to take a break pretty soon, but I still haven't even gotten into the whole story of the banjo. And there's this really weird piece I feel like I want to play for you that I wouldn't normally play because it's so weird. But I'll try it briefly. The banjo. There are banjo-like instruments all over the world in many different cultures. Many different parts of the world have drums, and many people have put attached strings to those drums. So you find them in India, you find them in Thailand and Nepal and Turkey. I was in a Turkish band for a while, and they welcomed the banjo because there are many banjo-like instruments in their culture. But the banjo, as this instrument is called, has its origins in Western Africa, where there are many instruments that are similar. But this actual instrument was only invented by enslaved people in the New World, I hate to call it the New World, in the Western Hemisphere. The earliest documentation of the banjo goes back to the late 17th century in Jamaica. So basically, wherever the slave trade went, banjos would spring up. And it's kind of crazy to imagine, well, for one thing, when people say, the banjos were brought over by the enslaved African people. Yeah, kind of. But it's not like, oh, hey, honey, today's the day we're being abducted. Don't forget your banjo. they didn't have anything. Everything was taken from them, or so they. It's really quite amazing to imagine being separated from your friends and family, maybe not even having a common language with the people you're with, surviving a weeks or months long journey with no food or water or fresh air, hardly at all. It was like that. It was tough. Not to make light of it, but to arrive in a new, strange place where you're not familiar with the plants or the animals or any of the surroundings, and being forced to work all your waking hours under those conditions to create a banjo. I couldn't create a banjo given all the free time and money in the world. I would not be able to do it. So I say all that to say there's a lot of power and a lot of meaning behind this instrument, which I myself will only ever understand partially. But it's got power to bring people together. It's got power to celebrate and to grieve together. And I want to just sort of get a brief overview of what happened from the banjo becoming into existence in the Western Hemisphere to the music that I'm playing for you tonight. So in the early days, the banjo was strongly associated with the plantation, and it was really just for black people to play. But at some point, the children or visitors of the plantation owners became very interested in these banjos because they noticed when the banjo was around, people, it had an effect on people. And it was appropriated into the minstrel shows early on and became sort of emblematic of minstrel shows. And I really have to say something about minstrel shows, which is that they've contributed more to our current popular entertainment than any other kind of thing. And it's not something to say, oh, it's all bad and throw the baby out with the bathwater, because minstrel shows really gave us the variety format of a bit of comedy, a song and dance, some music, and kind of keep it changing like Looney Tunes kind of thing. Of course, we do want to throw out the racism and the harmful stereotypes, which still persist to this day, but that's minstrel shows. They originally consisted of a small group of white men painting their faces black and performing these caricatures portraying these harmful stereotypes of black people. And that's been incredibly harmful, and there's so much work to be done to address that. And I'm trying to do something in my little way. But as the minstrel shows became more and more popular starting in the early 19th century, but really, leading up to the American Civil War, you have a new class of professional musician, the banjo player. And some of these people were really interested in seeing what they could do with the instrument. And they became influenced by European-style guitar players, what we call classical guitar. So the old style, the minstrel style of banjo playing was called banjo-style banjo. And it was sort of a down-picking style that's sort of like a fancy version of clawhammer playing. So an example would be like this. And as the banjo players became influenced by these guitar players, they started playing with up-picking, which you could do more with. And this spurred more interest in the banjo. More people were writing for the banjo. We could do more interesting things. We could create music that would be uniquely American and rival the great music of Europe. And as this direction got more momentum, the banjo started to be able to stand on its own as a musical instrument and not simply as a prop in the minstrel shows. And that's where we arrive at towards the second half of the 19th century with classic banjo, or with what they called guitar-style banjo. And this was the first time in history that the banjo was performed on a stage without the use of blackface makeup or comedy bits or song and dance or outrageous costumes. And I don't say that to say, aren't we great, we ended racism, because obviously it was still with us. It still is with us now. But it was a step forward. And maybe I'll just leave it at that and play this wacky piece that is definitely got a racist history. It's a piece that I got from Fred Van Epps, who is one of the most recorded banjo players because he was the youngest of that last generation of great players. And he worked for Thomas Edison as a banjo player because Thomas Edison had to demonstrate to the world that his recording techniques were superior, and banjo worked really well with his technology, and it was also a very popular instrument. So Van Epps would go to work every day and they'd say, these are the popular songs that you're going to record, and he would arrange them with the band real quick and then record them. And so there's a lot of recordings of Van Epps, and this is a piece that's there was also a lot of medleys being done in those days, which I don't do very much, but this is a medley of a piece that was originally called Southern Pride, and it was written by George Lansing, who was definitely on that side of the Civil War, and it's an example of what was popular at the time called a battle song, which depicts, it uses sound effects to kind of depict the sounds of war or the sounds of some kind of battle. Scott Joplin wrote a rag called The Great Crash Collision, which is about a famous train collision, and he's doing the same kind of thing as another battle song. And then the middle piece is by Victor Herbert, who is an American composer and pretty well known to any American musicians who had to do piano or cello studies, because he wrote a lot of those. Yes, so that one was called Oriental Dance. And so Fred Van Epps titled the medley Chinese Picnic. It's just weird, okay? I'm just gonna play it. It's really weird. When I heard it, I was like, what the heck is that? So here we go, Chinese Picnic. love about this old music, this period of music, is before recordings, things didn't get as flattened out, as smoothed out, as homogenized, as standardized. As like once you started to have recordings, people said, "Oh, that's nice. Let's do it that way from now on." And, you know, you have fewer variety in terms of chord changes and stuff. So I'm going to do one more number before we take a break. And before I do that, I want to tell you about some of the goodies that I brought with me. I actually am towards the end of the tour here, so I'm running out of my goodie bag. But I do have a few copies left of Mozart of the Banjo. And what I really like to say about it is, if you like this banjo music and you want to find out more, I've got a really nice booklet of liner notes, including essays from Anthony Peabody, Joe Morley's biographer, and Greg Adams, Smithsonian Institute archivist. So some real scholars contributing, and then also some other cool people who I respect and admire very much. And if you buy this liner notes, it comes with a CD. I also have a few other CDs. I have these postcards that come with a download code of the Mozart of the Banjo CD. So it's the idea is you buy two of them, one for you to keep, one to send to a friend who couldn't be here tonight, who you thought of. So that's the nice thing. I also have these tin-type portraits, which I'll gladly sign for anybody. I'll sign anything you want, including babies. I have signed babies before. And the most important thing on that email, on that table over there, which is I'll be hanging out there, is the email list. That's free to sign up. And if you want to hear from me when I'll be back here, what I'm doing, I have a recording project I haven't even talked about. I'll talk about it a little bit maybe in the next set when we do some more ragtime, get into ragtime music. But I got a lot of stuff cooking, and I want to share it with you, keep you in the loop. So if you're interested, sign up on that email list. Take your time doing it. There's plenty of paper. If I can't read what you've written, it's useless. So take your time. Use as much paper as you need. I think for this last number, I'll do a fiddle tune that I always enjoy. It's quite lively. I sometimes save it for the end of the night because it's got this message of hope in my mind. I do basically a nonsense version of this song, but it's called Jordan is a Hard Road to Travel. And it was a real popular number in the minstrel shows, but I heard recently that it predates minstrel shows. To me, you know, the chorus, throw off your coat, boys, roll up your sleeves, Jordan is a hard road to travel, says to me there's a lot of work to be done, but it doesn't need to be done in misery. It can be done with joy together. So that's how I interpret it. And it was the tradition in the minstrel shows to write new verses for this song every time you got to a new town that touched on current events and local politics. I'm not much of a lyrics person, as I mentioned, and I also travel much too fast to be able to keep up with that. It's in a different place almost every day. But I chose a version by Red Belcher and his Kentucky Ridge Runners from 1948, I think, which features simply nonsense lyrics. So here's Jordan is a Hard Road to Travel. I looked to the east, I looked to the west, I saw the old ladies coming with 40 greyhounds and a Dominica mule. She's riding on the other side of Jordan. Pull off your coat, boys, roll up your sleeves. Jordan is a hard road to travel. Pull off your coat, boys, roll up your sleeves. Jordan is a hard road to travel, I believe. I lived in the east, I lived in the west, I lived in old Virginia. I lived 40 days in a hornet's nest and I didn't get stung hardly any. Pull off your coat, boys, roll up your sleeves. Jordan is a hard road to travel. Pull off your coat, boys, roll up your sleeves. Jordan is a hard road to travel, I believe. Now Pa didn't raise no cut nor corn, he had bad luck with the taters. The cow ran off in the strawberry patch, and boy, you ought to seen him later. Pull off coat, boys, roll up your sleeves, Jordan is a hard road to travel. Pull off coat, boys, roll up your sleeves, Jordan is a hard road to travel, I believe.
Wow. Aaron.
Sometimes I wonder why I spend the lonely nights dreaming of a song. The melody haunts my reverie, and I am once again with you when our love was new, and each kiss an inspiration. Oh, but that was long ago. Now my consolation is in the stardust of a song beside a garden wall when stars are bright. You are in my arms. The nightingale tells his fairy tale of paradise where roses bloom, though I dream in vain. In my heart it will remain, my stardust melody, the memory of love's refrain. Beside a garden wall when stars are bright, you are in my arms. The nightingale tells his fairy tale of paradise where roses bloom, though I dream in vain. In my heart it will remain, my stardust melody, the memory of love's refrain. Okay, great. Belle of Lexington. This is a nice tune that has some variations in different. Well, anyways, I'll play this. This is a nice tune. I'm gonna get back into the banjo music because this is, you can hear anyone play the fiddle, but this is so unusual. And I hinted at ragtime, you know, so I want to tell you my current recording project, if it weren't for COVID, it would have been done by now because I would have just worked with the same piano player and just gotten it done because, you know, we work well together. But since I couldn't do that, I said, well, what if I arranged this piece for string quartet? What if I arranged this piece for a 9-piece brass band? What if I arranged this piece for the largest pipe organ in the state of Michigan? And so it went on and on. There's 9 different ensembles that I've written out these ragtime pieces for, and it just kind of grew and grew. And I've actually recorded most of it already. There's just a couple of things remaining to get recorded. But you know, if you want to find out about the progress of it, because it will be released eventually, probably more than one album because it's 27 pieces. But you can follow its progress by joining the email list, and if you want to really be a super fan, you can join the Patreon and get access to the rehearsal recordings and behind the scenes kind of stuff like that. So I thought I'll play some ragtime music for you. Let's start with the most famous piece that I play by the greatest ragtime composer of all time, Scott Joplin. I do want to give some context because the ragtime music and classic banjo music were existing at the same time around the turn of the century, and they were very much influencing each other. They both have the same roots, which is African American music encountering European forms. And Joplin's parents were both banjo players. They both played classic banjo, so it's no surprise that the kind of piano styles and you know, just the musical motifs are very banjoistic. I think it's a word I've heard people use, banjoistic. So you'll see, I'm going to play this Joplin piece, and it's going to sound like pretty natural on the banjo, even though it wasn't written for the banjo. And this also was the first piece of music ever to sell 1 million copies. And it put ragtime on the map. And of course, when I say copies, I mean copies of sheet music, because this happened in 1899. Recording technology did exist then, but it was not really ready for the big time. So here it is, the Maple Leaf Rag. ragtime was the first music of the free black American. And it was really meant to be a very dignified music, elegant and refined, and to sort of, stand on the same ground as what we call classical music. And I actually don't like that term classical music anyways, because it just implies better than, and that's why I don't like it when people call this classical banjo. It's a small detail, but like to me it's classic banjo is different than classical. So speaking of, this first wave of ragtime is referred to as classic rags. These classic rags are never very fast. They're very, dignified and stately often. And I'm going to play another one of those for you. And then perhaps I'll play sort of second wave ragtime, which is called novelty rags, which is a bit more silly and zany and wild and faster and kind of paving the way for jazz music, which was actually being developed already at that time. But so yes, I'm going to play a piece for you by James Scott, who is another one of the top 3 or 4 greatest ragtime composers of all time, along with U.B. Blake, and many people would include Joseph Lamb as well. So this is a really beautiful piece of James Scott's called Grace and Beauty. It's too beautiful. My fingers. Okay, here we go. let's try a novelty rag, shall we? By the way, these pieces, none of them were written for the banjo specifically, and that the Maple Leaf Rag, I wrote that arrangement myself. The Grace and Beauty was arranged by Fred Van Epps, and I think Van Epps also arranged this one. This is called The Smiler by Percy Winrich. Kind of frivolous, but a lot of fun. I forgot I like to play my Chopin prelude before that one to give a real contrast. So I'm just going to play it now. So we go from like real frivolous and light and silly vibe to the saddest piece I know how to play. One of the saddest pieces ever. I mean, it's not very long, but I had to learn it when I was 14 so that I had something to do other than cry into my pillow. Well, come on, everybody does that when they're a kid, right? It's fine. It's fine. I'm fine. This is a beautiful piece, though. I've heard it referred to as the Death March. I don't know if anyone is familiar with this, but this is a famous one, so you might recognize it. I forget the opus number and everything, but the Chopin prelude. So here we go. So we brought the mood down. Why don't we do? Let's have the most beautiful melody ever written for the banjo. This might just be the most beautiful melody ever written, in my opinion. This is a piece by Emil Grimshaw called "You and a Canoe," Romance. Okay, well, so we're kind of in that space right now of beautiful and not so silly. I feel like playing another really beautiful piece for you. This is another piece by Joe Morley. This one's on the album. It's called Clematis Waltz. And the thing that really hooked me is the fourth section. So I think the first section is lovely. The second section is lovely. Get to the third part, it's like, that's great. The fourth part is where I'm just like, oh, kill me now. This is so nice. So here it is, Clematis Waltz. You know what? I'm just gonna get a little more comfortable because y'all are warming me up here. And I heard that, Joe Morley's waltzes were really popular in the Edwardian times, and he wrote a lot of them, but I could only find a handful of them. This is my favorite one, Clematis Waltz. Again, too beautiful. Just gotta try again. Here we go. gonna switch to fiddle. I feel like this will help us transition out of the. We're gonna play a beautiful waltz on the fiddle. This one comes from Johnny Gimbel, great Texas fiddler. Similar to Clematis Waltz, it's named after a flower. This is the Gardenia Waltz. Great. Okay, that'll change things. We're definitely going to leave beautiful land here. This is a pretty extreme tuning, but I just got a new bridge, so we should be all right. People don't do this tune so much anymore these days because you have to retune your fiddle like this. But they used to do it like all the early bluegrass fiddlers would do it. It's a showpiece. I don't really have a specific version worked up, but you'll just get a sense of this. This sounds really different. It's really makes the fiddle sound really different. So, Black Mountain Rag. transitioning back to standard tuning, I'll do something in this other tuning. Yonder comes a rabbit, slapped into the sand. Kill that rabbit, he don't care. Fry him in my pan, I'll fry him in my pan. The god rabbit's gone, the god rabbit's gone. The god rabbit's gone, gone, the god rabbit's gone. Raccoon's got a bushy tail, possum tail is bare. Rabbit's got no tail at all, just a little old patch of hair. Just a little old patch of hair. The god rabbit's gone, the god rabbit's gone. The god rabbit's gone, gone, the god rabbit's gone. Thinking about how many, it's too many more songs that I want to do, but I'm just going to do a few more, I think. There's it's really miserable, sad song that Arthur Smith wrote that I like. Called Adieu False Heart. Adieu, false heart, now we must part. May the joys of the world go with you. I've loved you long with a faithful heart, but I never anymore can I believe you. There was a time I'd have married you and been your constant lover. Now I'll gladly give you up for one whose heart's more truer. My mind is like the constant sun. From the east to the west it ranges. Yours is like unto the moon. It's every month that changes. When I lay down to take my rest, no scornful morn to wake me, I'll go straightways unto my grave, just as fast as time can take me. Okay, here's what I'm thinking. I'm gonna do a couple more banjo pieces, and then one last one on the fiddle, and we'll call it a night. Yeah, I could do this for probably 6 hours without a break, but we all have lives. We have to go and do other things. God, did I say a couple more? Maybe I'll do a few more. Yeah, we got time, right? I'm gonna do I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do a waltz, and then I'm gonna do okay. So I'm gonna do one of my more modern banjo pieces. This was by Frank Laws, a British composer. This was published in the 40s, and they called him Fifthless Frank because he didn't have a fifth string on his banjo. But he hung out with all the 5-string players. He didn't want to be like with the 4-string players. But he wrote great music, and he didn't need a 5th string to play it. So it's good to know some of his tunes in case your 5th string breaks and you don't have an extra one. So this is a really sweet piece of his that's going to be included in my upcoming recording project. I arranged this one for string quartet. It's called Progressions. So I'm gonna do like the finale type thing now, and I'm gonna play a Park Hunter piece. This is theme and variations on a song that was immensely popular and is still pretty well known in the US. I don't know if you all will recognize it. Well, I forgot to mention, how did the banjo come to England? Back in 1847, Joel Walker Sweeney and his minstrel show traveled over here to perform for the Queen, and they thought they'd stay for maybe a few weeks, but they were so well received that they had to stay for months and just play every day. Because like I don't know if I made it really that clear, but like the minstrel show format was so revolutionary, because before it, entertainment was, it just seemed like it was like black and white versus color. You know, minstrel shows were just really vivid, really just like giving sugar to a baby. Is what it was like. And the banjo caught on, and you know, as you've been hearing tonight, many great composers came from England, and I've also been told that roughly an equal number of banjos have been manufactured in this country as in the US, which can't be still true, but I think, you know, looking at the past 120 years or so, interesting to think, you know. And actually, of the few hundred people in the world who play classic banjo music, most of them are in England, or at least in the UK. More here than in the US. So I'm going to play this song, and I got a little off track, but it's called "Listen to the Mockingbird." And I heard from 3 separate reputable sources that it was Abraham Lincoln's favorite song. And I think that's believable, because it's a very kind of bland, safe kind of song that everybody loves, you know. The more boring and stupid a thing is, the more people will like it. But it is a nice melody, it's nothing wrong with it, but it's really fodder for improvisation. So, but the melody is basically just... There's not much there, but it's nice. So we'll see what Park Hunter came up with for some variations. So listen to the Mockingbird. You call it Air Very. Okay, shoot. All right. Okay, I'm gonna do my last number now. Last one. Last one before the encore. This is the most famous fiddle tune ever written, I believe. Most famous tune worldwide, the fiddle tune. It was written by a pretty unknown guy down in the Everglades in Florida named Irwin T. Rouse. He is a troubled soul. He had a really hard life, and he was very poor. And he never saw a penny of the royalties from this song. It was stolen from him by Chubby Wise, who was a great bluegrass fiddler, played with Bill Monroe. And I don't think Chubby Wise was a bad person for doing that, because it's just what everybody did. But certainly not fair. But regardless, it's a wonderful, wonderful song. It's a song about a train that goes from New York to Florida called the Orange Blossom Special. All aboard! Look yonder coming down that railroad track. Look yonder coming down that railroad track. It's the Orange Blossom Special, bringing my baby back. Okay. You can talk about your traveling. She's the fastest train on the line. You talk about your traveling. She's the fastest train on the line. She's the Orange Blossom Special, coming down that seaboard line. sounds crazy. Okay. What's the last verse? Oh. Think I'll head on down to Florida. Get some sand in my shoes. Or maybe California. Get some sand in my shoes. I'll take the orange blossom special and lose these New York blues. Olé, olé, olé. This is easy. Well, thank you all so much. And by the way, when I said that thing at the very beginning about 19 encores and stuff, I wasn't suggesting that that would be the case for tonight, because we do live in it's 2022. But yeah, I think I want to play this. This is kind of a rousing number, and it's an Emil Grimshaw piece called "A Footlight Favorite," which to me implies theatricality. I think that the melody is very like Three Amigos. Did anyone see that movie with Steve Martin? And yeah, I think that's what I think of. I think of like silent movie villains, like tying people to railroad tracks and other people with horses and like white hats, like to the rescue, stuff like that. So I'll leave it to your imagination, as always. For the music nerds, most of this classic banjo stuff is done in what was originally called standard tuning. Now we call it C tuning or something, C standard. But now I'm tuning up to raised bass tuning, which is now known as standard tuning. It's just entropy, The Earth is eventually going to be flat, even though it's not right now. If it doesn't get swallowed by the sun first, because it's spinning around, it's gonna. Okay, here it is, a Footlight Favorite. Thank you so much, everyone. And how about a hand for Andy for putting this all together, getting me out here. I'd also like to ask for an enthusiastic round of applause for all the volunteers who have been helping out and making this place work so well. How about a hand for all I think this place is really special, and you all are lucky to have it. And I guess you all know that because you're here. And very few of you have never been here before, so you already know. I don't have to say. Thanks again, and here we go. We're gonna go out on an adventurous note.
I see there are a few CDs left.